ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹர ஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே ஜகதः பிதரௌ வந்தே பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வரौ. ஸ்ரீ பார்வதி பரமேஸ்வராभ्यां நமः. कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं चक्रवाटी ध्रुवमभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മന്യനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ട തോറു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good evening everyone. Thank you for joining a little early today and accommodating the time. So we'll directly jump into 52 since we only have an hour today. So 52 is Brahma Krita Vatsapahara Varnanam. So it's the stealing of the calves and the boys by Brahma. So this is one of the amazing chapter, one of the Dasakams I absolutely love, in terms of the content of it. So All right. So Prabha, you can be a student today. Sandeep, can you be a student? 52. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So stanza 1. अन्यावतारनिकरेष्वनिरीक्षितं ते भूमातिरेकमभिवीक्ष्य तदाघमोक्षे ब्रह्मा परीक्षितुमना सपरोक्षभावं निन्येत वत्सकगणान् प्रवितत्यमायाम्. So we saw in the last chapter, right, the ending of the last was the killing of Aghasura, and then how all the boys and Krishna and the calves and everybody were settling down along the banks of Yamuna, and then they were having their lunch, picnic lunch. That's how we ended the 51st chapter. And we also saw how all the gods, everybody looked from the top and said, how lucky all these boys are, and even all the offerings that they did, the meal that Krishna was sharing with his friends was better than all the homams and all the offerings that they had done, right? So that's what was happening in 51st chapter. So 52nd chapter, so what's happening is the continuation of that, right? So Brahma is now wondering, how is it this Aghasura, who's such a evil person, who was in such a big form of a python, which was so big, and Krishna at such an young age was able to get rid of all of him, and then so everybody was like really praising because Aghasura was a very famous person, famous demon. So Brahma was wondering, I've never seen in any of your other avatars, Anyavatara, any of your other avatars, you being such a small and accomplishing so much, right, at this small age. So he was wondering, what, I really want to test the potency of Krishna. So that's what Brahma decides. So what happens is when they're all sitting for lunch, because it's hot, all the calves go away to graze because they see some greener grass somewhere else. So the calves go away. So at this time, Brahma comes, and then to test Krishna, what he does is he makes those calves invisible, it says. Essentially what it means is he takes the calves away. So the calves disappear from there. So that's what is happening in the first stanza. Anyavatara Nikareshwa Nirikshitam te, Bhumatirekam Abhivikshya Tadagha Mokshe Brahma Parikshitu Manaha is that putta is Manas sa Paroksha Bhavam, Ninyeta Vatsaka Ganan Pravitatya Mayam. Anyavatar.
Sorry. You said Brahma Parikshitu Manasa Paroksha Bhavam.
Yeah, the Manaha is there, right? So is comes there. Is then sa Paroksha Bhavam. अन्यावतारनिकरेष्वनिरीक्षितं ते भूमातिरेकम् अभिवीक्ष्य तदाघमोक्षे ब्रह्मा परीक्षितुमना सपरोक्षभावं निन्येत वत्सकगणान् प्रवितत्य मायाम्.
अन्यावतारनिकरेष्वनिरीक्षितं ते भूमातिरेकम् अभिवीक्ष्य तदाघमोक्षे ब्रह्मा परीक्षितुमना सपरोक्षभावं निन्येत वत्सकगणान् प्रवितत्य मायम्.
Mayam, last word. And then the third line you added an extra is somewhere. Parikshitu manas sa paroksha bhavam.
Parikshitu manas sa paroksha bhavam. Anyavatara nikareshva nirikshitam te bhumatirekam abhivikshya tadaghmokshe brahma parikshitu manasa paroksha bhavam ninyeta vatsa kaganan pravitatya mayam.
Mayam.
Sorry, mayam.
Okay. Anyavatara-nikareshva-niरीक्षितं te bhumatirekam-abhivikshya tadaghmokshe brahma parikshitu manasa paroksha bhavam ninneta vatsakaganan pravitatya mayam. Anyavatara-nikareshva-niरीक्षितं te Bhumatirekam-abhivikshya tadaghmokshe Brahma parikshitu manasa paroksha bhavam Ninyeta vatsakaganan pravitatya mayam.
Stanza 2. वत्सानवीक्ष्य विवशे पशुपोत्करे तान् आनेतु काम इव धातृमतानुवर्ती त्वं सामि भुक्तकबलो गतवांस्तदानीं भुक्तां स्थिरोधितसरोज भवः कुमारान्. So then the calf suddenly disappears. So the boys they didn't realize it. Then after some time, the boys are noticing that suddenly all the calves are gone. They can't find out where they are. So of course, Krishna knows what is happening. So, and he also wanted this to proceed further, right? So what he does is he tells the boys is, you don't worry, let me go and look for the calves. So you all continue to sit here and eat. And that's why I was telling last time this Kabalar Dhapanihi, that ball of rice which he has in his hand, which came in the 51st chapter. So he still has that ball of rice in his hand, which is eating. So with that ball of rice which is eating, he says, you all stay here, let me go find out. Right, and then Krishna then leaves, leaving the boys alone because he knows what's going to happen. And when he leaves at that time, Brahma also makes the boys disappear. Essentially, even the boys also go away from there. So essentially, now the boys are gone and the calves are also gone from there. So Saroja Bhava is the one who's come from the lotus. That is referring to Brahma. Then he took away the Kumaran. He took away the boys. Vatsana Vikshya Vivashe Pashupotkare Tan. Put a in at the end of that line and a comma. Tan. Next line, nanetu is there, becomes anetu. So anetu kama iva dhatru matanuvarti tvam.
Rajesh, I'm sorry. The 52 or 50. So sorry. I
52 second
Okay.
stanza. Second stanza.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Tvam sami bhukta kabalo gatavams tadanim, comma, bhuktams tirodhita Saroja Bhavaha is there, put a ich sound, Saroja Bhavah Kumaran. Vatsana Vikshya Vivashe Pashupotkare Tan Anetu Kama Iva Dhatrumatanu Tvam Sami Bhukta Kabalo Gatavams Tadani Bhuktam Stirodhita Saroja Bhavah Kumaran.
वत्सानवीक्ष्य विवशे पशुपोत्करे तान् आनेतु काम इव धातृमतानुवर्ती त्वं सामि भुक्तकबलो गतवांस्तदानीं भुक्तां स्थिरोधितसरोजभवः कुमारान्. वत्सानवीक्ष्य विवशे पशुपोत्करे तान् आनेतु काम इव धातृमतानुवर्ती त्वं सामि भुक्तकबलो गतवांस्तदानीं भुक्तां स्थिरोधितसरोजभवः कुमारान्.
वत्सानवीक्ष्य विवशे पशुपोत्करे तान् आनेतु काम इव धातृमतानुवर्ती त्वं सामि भुक्तकबलो गतवांस्तदानीं भुक्तास्तिरोधिति सरोजभवः कुमारान्.
Tirodhita, that last line. Tirodhita.
भुक्तास्तिरोधित. Okay. वत्सानवीक्ष्य विवशे पशुपोत्करे तान् आनेतु काम इव धातृमतानुवर्ती त्वं सामि भुक्तकबलो गतवांस्तदानीं भुक्तास्तिरोधित सरोजभवः कुमारान्.
Stanza 3. वत्सायितस्तदनु गोपगणायितस्त्वं शिक्यादिभाण्डमुरलीगबलादिरूपः प्राग्वद्विहृत्य विपिनेषु चिराय सायं त्वं माययात बहुधा व्रजमाययाथ. So another of Krishna's, what do you call, fun things to do, right, as part of Krishna Avataram amongst everything. So he decides, okay, now Brahma has taken the boys and he has taken the calves. So first of all, that has to be fixed. At the same time, he also realizes that all the Gopas and the Gopikas and the cows, which have all taken birth around the time of Krishna Avataram, he wants to increase their pleasure as well. So what he does is, he then becomes the various boys and the various things and the calves. So here it's very beautiful because it says that, so if there are let's say 20 boys. Each of them have different features. One person may have 6 fingers, one may have 5 fingers, one may be dark, one may be light, fat, thin. So he becomes that, and it's not like it's like we put like a makeup and vesham we put. It's not that he actually becomes, and by becoming that, you not only look like that person, you have to also behave like that person, right? And you have all the attributes and all the characteristics of individual Gopa boys and of all the calves, right? Krishna then inherits. And then once he takes on the individual forms of all the boys and all the calves, the next thing that comes is how they deal with different things. So some of them may tug their flute on the right side, some of them may tug it on the left side, so he has to do that. So that way because that is that boy, right? And then each one's mother has sent them different kind of food, and some of them may like some food, some of them may have left some vegetables back, and so it has to be exactly that. So he becomes those boys. He becomes even the food. He becomes the lunch box. He becomes the flute. He becomes the bhanda murali. He becomes their flute. He becomes their the horn, the bugle horn which they actually came up with. He becomes the calves. He becomes their sticks. So everything, because everything essentially has disappeared. So he then becomes everything. And then once he's become everything and he's now inherited all of those attributes and characteristics, he then plays among with himself, because all the boys are playing games, all the calves have to graze. So all of that is happening. And then when the time comes in the evening, it says Vrajamaya Yata. Then he goes back to the Vraja Bhumi. He comes back to Vrindavan, because the time has now come for everybody to come back home. So Vatsayitas Tadanu Gopa Ganayitas Tvam, Shikyadi Bhanda Murali Gavaladi Rupaha Pragvad Vihritya Vipineshu Chiraya Sayam, Tvam Mayayatha Bahudha Vrajamaya Vatsayitastadanu Gopaganayitastvam Shikyadi Bhanda Murali Gavaladi Rupaha Pragvat Vihritya Vipineshu Chiraya Sayam Tvam Mayayata Bahudha Vrajamaya.
Vatsayitastadanu Gopaganayitastvam Shikyadi Bhanda Murali Gavaladi Rupaha Pragvad Vihritya Vipineshu Chiraya Sayam Tvam Mayayata Bahuda Vrajamayayatha. Vatsayitastadanu Gopaganayitastvam Shikyadi Bhanda Murali Gavaladi Rupaha Pragvad Vihritya Vipineshu Chiraya Sayam Tvam Mayayata Bahuda Vrajamayayatha.
Vatsayitastadanu Gopaganayitastvam Shikyadi Bhanda Murali Gavaladi Rupaha Pragvad Vihritya Vipineshu Chiraya Sayam Tvam Mayayata Bahuda Vrajamayayatha. Vatsayitastadanu Gopaganayitastvam Shikyadi Bhanda Murali Gavaladi Rupaha Pragvad Vihritya Vipineshu Chiraya Sayam Tvam Mayayata Bahuda Vrajamayayatha.
Stanza 4. Tvamev Shikya Gavaladimayam Dadhano Bhuyastvameva Pashuvatsaka Bala Rupaha Gorupini Bhirapi Gopa Vadhu Mahibihi Asaditosi Janani Bhirati Praharshat. So it just continues that you yourself in the form of Gopas, carrying yourself in the form of a flute, herding the calves, which is also you, all of them then come back to the Vrajabhumi. So now when they come, like everybody has unique characteristics. Like some kids come and then they throw the school bag away. Some people go put it in the right spot. So Krishna has to behave like that, right? And when the kids are coming back, each one is playing their musical instrument. So the mother will recognize, oh, you know what, this flute only my son can play so bad, or my son can play it so good. So he has to do exactly like that. So the mothers recognize it is my son who is coming back. And similarly, even the cows, although all the calves look like same to us, every calf is unique. So the cows have to recognize that it is my child which has come back home. So he had all of these characteristics that they were not able to realize, and they all welcomed. And the mothers, as always, they welcomed the boys in, and the cows also. The calves went into the respective sheds where their mother cow is as well.
Rajeshri, I think நான் எங்கேயோ கேட்டேன் இந்த மாதிரி இந்த இதை வந்து even though எல்லாமே ஒரே மாதிரி reflect பண்ணா கூட they all felt there was something different.
I'll tell that. Yeah, just okay. wait till the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Tvameva shikya gavaladi mayam dadano, bhuyas tvameva pashu vatsaka bala rupaha go rupini bhirapi gopa vadhu mayi bihi. So put a visarga there at the end and comma, mayi bihi. Next line, that ra becomes a. Asaditosi janani bhirati praharshat. Tvameva shikya gavaladi mayam dadhano bhuyastvameva pashuvatsaka bala rupaha gorupini bhirapi gopa vadhu mayi bihi asaditosi janani bhirati praharshat.
त्वामेव शिक्य गवलादिमयं दधानो भूयस्त्वमेव पशुवत्सकबालरूपः गोरूपिणीभिरपि गोपवधूमयीभिः आसादितोऽसि जननीभिरति प्रहर्षात् त्वामेव शिक्य गवलादिमयं दधानो भूयस्त्वमेव पशुवत्सकबालरूपः गोरूपिणीभिरपि गोपवधूमयीभिः आसादितोऽसि जननीभिरति प्रहर्षात्.
The birati, the last word, birati praharshat.
Birati praharshat.
त्वामेव शिक्य गवलादिमयं दधानो भूयस्त्वमेव पशुवत्सकबालरूपः गोरूपिणीभिरपि गोपवधूमयीभिः आसादितोऽसि जननीभिरति प्रहर्षात् त्वामेव शिक्य गवलादिमयं दधानो भूयस्त्वमेव पशुवत्सकबालरूपः गोरूपिणीभिरपि गोपवधूमयीभिः आसादितोऽसि जननीभिरति प्रहर्षात्.
Stanza 5. जीवं हि कञ्चिदभिमानवशात् स्वकीयं मत्वा तनूज इति रागभरं वहन्त्यः आत्मानमेव तु भवन्तमवाप्य सूनुं प्रीतिं ययुर्न कियतीं वनिताश्च गावः. This is where I think what Vijay was referring to, right? So everybody, they have the sense of that abhimanam, my oneness, my unique me, right? We all have that, right? So similarly, what he says is everybody, although you might say, I treat everybody equal, everybody is fair, equal in my way. When it comes to your child, you always have that extra love and extra affection, whether it be humans or whether it be cows as well. They have that extra affection, right? But however, in Vrindavan, the one difference was, lot of the gopikas loved Krishna little bit more than their child, like their own child. They somehow had that extra affection towards Krishna, right? So now when these boys are coming back, then somehow these mothers are beginning to feel that somehow I feel like I love my child a little bit more today. I don't feel angry at him as much, right? So I have a little bit of an extra affection towards it. And not only their child, they somehow now are beginning to have that extra amount of affection with other children as well, because all the other children also have become Krishna now, right? So this is what saying is all these people, as Bhartripat also says, what great joy, Kiyatim, what great joy that they all would have experienced to have you as their own child, right? Previously, they only had a chance to interact with you, right? Be close with you and play with you. Now you yourself has become all of their child, both for the cows as well as for the gopikas, and then they all experienced a sudden uplift in happiness and joyness, right? When the children came back home and when they were with them. So Jivam, he. Next word, if you want to break it, it'll be easier to break the da into a it and a a. So kanchit abhimana, if you want to break it, or you can say it together, kanchit abhimana, vashat swakiyam, comma, matva tanuja iti raga bharam vahantyah, atmanameva tu bhavantam avapya sunum, comma, pritim yayurna kiyatim vanitascha gavaha. जीवं हि कञ्चिदभिमानवशात् स्वकीयं मत्वा तनूज इति रागभरं वहन्त्यः आत्मानमेव तु भवन्तमवाप्य सूनुं प्रीतिं ययुर्न कियतीं वनिताश्च गावः.
जीवं हि कञ्चिदभिमानवशात् स्वकीयं मत्वा तनूज इति रागभरं वहन्त्यः आत्मानमेव तु भवन्तमवाप्य सूनुं प्रीतिं ययुर्न कियतीं वनिताश्च गावः. जीवं हि कञ्चिदभिमानवशात् स्वकीयं मत्वा तनूज इति रागभरं वहन्त्यः आत्मानमेव तु भवन्तम् अवाप्य सूनुं प्रीतिं ययुर्न कियतीं वनिताश्च गावः.
जीवं हि कञ्चिदभिमानवशात् स्वकीयं मत्वा तनूज इति रागभरं वहन्त्यः आत्मानमेव तु भवन्तमवाप्य सूनुं प्रीतिं ययुर्न कियतीं वनिताश्च गावः. जीवं हि कञ्चिदभिमानवशात् स्वकीयं मत्वा तनूज इति रागभरं वहन्त्यः आत्मानमेव तु भवन्तमवाप्य सूनुं प्रीतिं ययुर्न कियतीं वनिताश्च गावः.
Stanza 6. एवं प्रतिक्षण विजृंभित हर्ष भार निःशेष गोपगण लालित भूरिमूर्तिं त्वामग्रजोऽपि बुबुधे किल वत्सरान्ते ब्रह्मात्मनोरपि महान् युवयोर्विशेषः. So now time passes, right? And like the affection that they are having, so it's one thing to have really good affection, you're absolutely loving something, but the second thing is to be able to sustain that over a period of time. Here what they are seeing is they are not only able to sustain, but their affection keeps increasing every day. They're getting like loving it even more every day, day by day it's increasing, and this is going on almost for an year. And about 5 or 6 days before the end of the year, before that 1 year completes of when Brahma had taken. So one interesting thing which I forgot to mention in the previous chapter was Balarama did not go that day. There are a couple of times when Balarama does not go out with Krishna. So one is happening in the 51st chapter, then it's going to happen in the 54th and the 55th chapter as well, and Kali and Ardhanam happens, because Balarama himself is an avataram of Adishesha. So when Krishna was what he was going to kill, Aghasura was coming as a python in a snake form. So that day Krishna did not take Balarama along, and so that's why Balarama is still there. Balarama is the same old form staying back in Vrindavan. So it says even though Balarama is also an incarnation of yours, he is only a part incarnation of yours, where it says Krishnasya Bhagavan Swayam, you are the full incarnation. So there is, it says, Bhattacharya says, even Bhagavatam says, there is a difference between Balarama and you in terms of the potency, right? So that's why even Balarama also for almost this 359 days, he could not see the difference, but he was suspecting something. And then there are some two very interesting stories that come in Bhagavatam of how Balarama realizes something is different. So these days pass, and one day he realizes that the Gopa men, they also seem to love their sons a lot, and he's seeing that when the boys come back, the men are going in and hugging them and loving them really much. And his brother says this never used to happen. Now all of a sudden the men are beginning to absolutely show affection. Show affection doesn't mean they don't like the boys already, they're showing affection right towards the boys. That was one. And the second really interesting story they say is So cows, when they give birth to calves, right? So the newborn has to drink the cow milk, right? That's the only way the udder has to, it will keep flowing, right? And once some of the calves mature to a particular age, they don't drink the cow milk anymore. They have to go grazing. So because a year has passed, what was happening was the old calves which were taken away, which Krishna is there, and then the cows now have new calves which have come. But somehow the cows were giving preference to the old calves. When the old calves were coming back from grazing, the cows were letting the old calves drink their milk first and not the newborn calves drink milk. So when Balarama is observing this, he's saying something is different, something has changed, right? And he's noticing this and he goes and tells Krishna, listen, I know something has changed, you are to tell what it is. So that's when Krishna reveals to Balarama then that this is what has actually happened, right? It is me who is there in each of these things, and Brahma has taken. So all of that story gets revealed to Balarama at this point.
One question. So, if Krishna is in the form of new calf, don't you think mother will have more affection towards the new calf rather than old calf?
No. The Krishna is the thing. No, think of it as 1 year back. Whatever calf was there is the old calf now. Now it has got new calves.
Okay. I see. So old calf is the Krishna.
Old calf is Krishna. So the mother has to give preference to the newborn calves, right?
Okay.
But the mother is giving, when the old calves are coming back from grazing, they rush to their mother, and the mother is letting them drink milk and not letting the new calves drink milk, right? So that is the thing that yeah. Evam pratikshana vijrambhita harsha bhara, and then put a plus, nishesha gopa gana lalita bhuri murtim. So those two lines are together. Tvam agrajopi bubudhe kila vatsarante, comma, brahmatmanorapi mahan yuvayor visheshaha. एवं प्रतिक्षण विजृंभित हर्ष भार निशेष गोपगण लालित भूरि मूर्तिम त्वामग्रजोपि बुबुधे किल वत्सरान्ते ब्रह्मात्मनोरपि महान् युवयोर्विशेषः.
एवं प्रतिक्षण विजृंभित हर्ष भार निशेष गोपगण लालित भूरि मूर्तिम त्वामग्रजोऽपि बुबुधे किल वत्सरान्ते ब्रह्मात्मनोरपि महान् युवयोर्विशेषः. एवं प्रतिक्षण विजृंभित हर्ष भार निशेष गोपगण लालित भूरि मूर्तिं त्वामग्रजोऽपि बुबुधे किल वत्सरान्ते ब्रह्मात्मनोरपि महान् युवयोर विशेषः.
The third and fourth line are not together. Okay, third line kappan there is a comma.
Evam pratikshana vijrumbita harsha bharat nissesha gopagana lalita bhuri murtim twamagrajopi bubudhe kila vatsarante brahmatmanorapi mahan yuvayor viseshaha. Evam pratikshana vijrumbita harsha bhar निशेष गोपगण लालित भूरि मूर्तिं त्वामग्रजोऽपि बुबुधे किल वत्सरान्ते ब्रह्मात्मनोरपि महान् युवयोर्विशेषः.
Stanza 7. वर्षावधौ नवपुरातनवत्सपालान् दृष्ट्वा विवेकमसृणे द्रुहिणे विमूढे प्रादीदृशः प्रतिनवान् मकुटाङ्गदादिभूषांश्चतुर्भुजयुजः सजलाम्बुधाभान्. So now almost an year has passed, right? And this another point which comes is when these boys come back later. So this story starts with Parikshit, right, telling asking Shukabramam the question. I remember this thing happened where when Krishna was 5 years old, and then they all went to the forest and Aghasura got killed. But then the boys recited this event to their parents as if it happened yesterday, although it was 1 year later. That's what Parikshit asked Shukabramam, which is when Shukabramam tells the story, right?
Rajesh, I totally forgot. I have a meeting right now.
Oh, no worries. No problem.
I have
Go
to
ahead.
step out. Okay.
Yeah. Vikram, you can.
Someone else should.
Yeah, Vikram, you can just do the class remaining. Yeah.
Thank you.
So they ask. That's when Sukha Brahma starts the story. But anyway, here what happens is only one kshanam has passed. Very small fraction of time has passed for Brahma because he has really long life. And then, but it's 1 year has passed in Vrindavan right now. So now when Brahma, after that small kshanam, he's like, okay, let me see what is happening. And when he sees in the forest, he sees the same boys, he sees the same calves, and he sees Krishna, everybody there, just like how it was then. So Brahma is like now really confused. How is it I have a set of people and then there's another set of exactly same set of people out there as well? And Brahma is now really getting confused as to who is the real group, right? Like whether he's now confused whether he even has the right set of people. Sometimes when you kidnap, right, and you end up kidnapping the wrong set of people, so he's like confused. Now, do we even have the right set of people here? So at that time, what Krishna then does is here it says, Pratinav, to Brahma, you show Makutang Gadadi Bhusham. So you now show your form, which is with a dark blue color, with a Chaturbhujam, with a Makuta, with the Angari, with the crown and the jewels and all of that. So all of a sudden, all the Gopa boys and all the calves, everybody is becoming a four-handed Krishna with a dark blue color, with a crown and a jewel and all of that. And they're all like four-handed Krishnas there. That's what Brahma now begins to see. So, Varsha Vadhau Nava Puratana Vatsapalan Drishtva Viveka Masrune Druhine Vimudhe Pradi Drishaha, is that put a F there? Pradi Drishaf Pratinavan Makutangadadi, put a plus, Bhushansh Chatur Bhuja Yujaha, put a is Yujas Sajalambudabhan. वर्षावधौ नवपुरातनवत्सपालान् दृष्ट्वा विवेकमसृणे द्रुहिणे विमूढे प्रादीदृशः प्रतिनवान् मकुटाङ्गदादिभूषाश्चतुर्भुजयुजः सजलाम्बुदाबान्.
वर्षावधौ नवपुरातनवत्सपालान् दृष्ट्वा विवेकमसृणे द्रुहिणे विमूढे प्रादीदृशः प्रतिनवान् मकुटाङ्गदादि भूषाश्चतुर्भुजयुजः सजलाम्बुदाभान्. वर्षावधौ नवपुरातनवत्सपालान् दृष्ट्वा विवेकमसृणे द्रुहिणे विमूढे प्रादीदृशः प्रतिनवान् मकुटाङ्गदादि भूषाश्चतुर्भुजयुजः सजलाम्बुदाभान्.
वर्षावधौ नवपुरातनवत्सपालान् दृष्ट्वा विवेकमसृणे द्रुहिणे विमूढे प्रादीदृशप्रतिनवान् मकुटाङ्गदादि भूषां चतुर्भुजयुजः सजलाम्बुदाभान्.
Vikram, on the first line there's a comma, okay? Vatsapala.
वर्षावधौ नवपुरातनवत्सपालान् दृष्ट्वा विवेकमसृणे द्रुहिणे विमूढे प्रादीदृशप्रतिनवान् मकुटाङ्गदादि भूषान् चतुर्भुजयुजः सजलाम्बुदाभान्.
Stanza 8. प्रत्येकमेव कमला परिलालिताङ्घान् भोगीन्द्र भोगशयनान् नयनाभिरामान् लीलानिमीलितदृशः सनकादियोग्यव्यासेवितान् कमलभूर्भवतो ददर्श. So Kamal Bhurva, one who's come from the lotus flower, which is Brahma, what he then sees. So first Krishna shows to him that all these Gopa boys and all the calves are me, number one. So that he established in the previous one. So now he shows, Brahma now sees what he originally saw when his Kalpa started, which was Lord Narayana lying in Adishesha position with Mahalakshmi and with the Sanakadi Yogin, all of them. So Brahma is seeing each one of them being in that form. So that's why it says, Kamala is Mahalakshmi. So Mahalakshmi sitting next to Mahalakshmi sitting next, and Lord Narayana lying on Adishesha, and he sees that form of Narayana in everybody as well. So he's also seeing that form of the Lord with each of them. And so when he sees that, and he sees the Lord in a Yoga Nidra pose with his eyes closed. Pratyekameva Kamala Pari Lalithangan, Bhogindra Bhoga Shayanan Nayanabhiraman Leela Nimilita Drishaha. Put is there Drishas Sanakadi Yogi. So it's a short E. So the best way to say that would be to bring it down because you're going to put a plus there. So Sanakadi Yogi Vyase Vitan Kamalabhur Bhavato Dadarsha. प्रत्येकमेव कमला परिलालिताङ्गान् भोगीन्द्र भोगशयनान् नयनाभिरामान् लीलानिमीलितदृशः सनकादियोगिव्यासेवितान् कमलभूर्भवतो ददर्श.
प्रत्येकमेव कमला परिलालिताङ्गान् भोगीन्द्र भोगशयनान् नयनाभिरामान् लीलानिमीलितदृशः सनकादियोगिव्यासेवितान् कमलभूर्भवतो ददर्श. प्रत्येकमेव कमला परिलालिताङ्गान् भोगीन्द्र भोगशयनान् नयनाभिरामान् लीलानिमीलितदृशः सनकादियोगि व्यासेवितान् कमलभूर्भवतो ददर्श.
प्रत्येकमेव कमला परिलालिताङ्गान् भोगीन्द्र भोगशयनान् नयनाभिरामान् लीलानिमीलितदृशः सनकाधियोगिव्यासेवितान् कमलभूर्भवतो ददर्श. प्रत्येकमेव कमला परिलालिताङ्गान् भोगीन्द्र भोगशयनान् नयनाभिरामान् लीलानिमीलितदृशः सनकाधियोगिव्यासेवितान् कमलभूर्भवतो ददर्श.
Stanza 9. नारायणाकृतिमसङ्ख्यतमां निरीक्ष्य सर्वत्र सेवकमपि स्वमवेक्ष्य धाता मायानिमग्नहृदयो विमुमोह यावत् एको बभूवित तदा कबलार्धपाणिः. So just looking at one form itself is like a blessing, and then it gets you into bliss. So when Brahma is saying so many Narayanas there, he could not even take it, right? That he suddenly goes into, is such a high bliss that he goes into some sort of a trance and he loses his consciousness for a second, and then he realizes, and then he comes back, and then he comes back, and then when he sees, let's take how it happened to Yashoda, he's seeing himself serving the Narayana also. So now he's not only seeing Narayana, he's seeing himself in his supposed role of serving Narayana. So that's when Brahma realizes, that what he undertook and what he went through, and then suddenly he kind of came back to life. And when that happens, then Lord Krishna then goes back to how it was when Brahma took them. You say Kabalardhapanihi, where you had that half ball of rice in your hand. If you remember, that was how Krishna then went out looking for the boys and the calves. He had that ball of rice half eaten. So he then sees that Krishna, he then sees that Gopa boys and the cows back in the same position as if nothing happened. And it is all moved back by 1 year, and he sees that Krishna in that form. So Narayana Kritim Asankyatamam. If you want to break it, you can break it that ma. So Narayana Kritim Asankyatamam Nirikshya, comma. Sarvatra Sevakamapi Swamavekshya Dhata Maya Nimagna Hridayo Vimumoha Yavat. Put the it there, comma. Next line, the deko becomes eko. Eko babhuvita tada kabalardha panihi. Narayana kritima sankyatamam nirikshya sarvatra sevakamapi swamavekshya dhata mayani magna hridayo vimumoha yavat eko babhuvita tada kabalardha panihi.
नारायणाकृतिम् असङ्ख्यतमां निरीक्ष्य सर्वत्र सेवकमपि स्वमवेक्ष्य धाता मायानिमग्नहृदयो विमुमोह यावद् एको बभूवित तदा कबलार्धपाणिः. नारायणाकृतिम् असङ्ख्यतमां निरीक्ष्य सर्वत्र सेवकमपि स्वमवीक्ष्य धाता मायानिमग्नहृदयो विमुमोहयावद् एको बभूवित तदा कबलार्धपाणिः।
नारायणाकृतिमसङ्ख्यतमां निरीक्ष्य सर्वत्र सेवकमपि स्वमवेक्ष्य धाता मायानिमग्नहृदयो विमुमोह यावत् एको बभूवित तदा कबलार्धपाणिः। नारायणाकृतिमसङ्ख्यतमां निरीक्ष्य सर्वत्र सेवकमपि स्वमवेक्ष्य धाता मायानिमग्नहृदयो विमुमोह यावत् एको बभूविथ तदा कबलार्धपाणिः।
Sansaten. नश्यन्मदे तदनु विश्वपतिं मुहुस्त्वां नत्वा च नूतवति धातरि धामयाते पोतैः समं प्रमुदितैः प्रविशन्निकेतं वातालयाधिप विभो परिपाहि रोगात्. So then Brahma realized, and then who's Nashyan Made, after his pride has been completely destroyed, then Brahma then bows over to Narayana, and then he goes back, and then Krishna and all the boys and all the calves then come back home. So that's where what happening, the boys haven't realized that a year has passed, right? And so now when they come and then they tell their parents, oh, you won't realize what happened yesterday. In the next day they tell their parents, you won't realize what happened yesterday. We went crazy, we went to the picnic and we saw this huge python, and then we didn't realize, and somehow Krishna miraculously we all escaped, and they kind of narrate that story as if it happened the previous day. So that's what it happens. So that O Vatalayadipo, O Lord of Guruvayur, Paripahi Rogat, please eradicate or save me from all diseases. Nashyan Made Tadanu Vishwapatim Muhustvam, Natva cha Nutavati Dhatari Dhama Yate Potaihi, put is Potais Samam Pramuditaihi, put a F Pramuditaif Pravishan Niketam, Vatalayadhipa Vibho Paripahi Rogat. Nashyan Made Tadunu Vishwapatim Muhustvam Natva cha Nutavati Dhatari Dhamayate Potais Samam Pramuditaif Pravishan Niketam Vatalayadhipa Vibho Paripahi Rogat.
नश्यामदे तदनु विश्वपतिं महुस्त्वां नत्वा च नूतवति धातरि धामयाते पोतैः समं प्रमुदितैः प्रविशन्निकेतं वातालयाधिप विभो परिपाहि रोगात्.
The first word, Nashyan Made, first word.
नश्यन्मदे तदनु विश्वपतिं
Muhustvam. Prabha, underline clip chudunga, Muhustvam and the word Muhustvam, right?
मुहुस्त्वां.
Yeah. Okay.
नश्यन्मदे तदनु विश्वपतिं मुहुस्त्वां नत्वा च नूतवति धातरि धामयाते पोतैः समं प्रमुदितैः प्रविशन्निकेतं वातालयाधिप विभो परिपाहि रोगात्.
नश्यन्मदे तदनु विश्वपतिं मुहुत्स्वां नत्वा च नूतवति धातरि धामयाते पूतैः समं प्रमुदितैः प्रविशन्निकेतं वातालयाधिप विभो परिपाहि रोगात्. नश्यन्मदे तदनु विश्वपतिं मुहुत्स्वां नत्वा च नूतवति धातरि धामयाते पूतैः समं प्रमुदितैः प्रविशन्निकेतं वातालयाधिप विभो परिपाहि रोगात्.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, we'll just stop the class here. The next class we'll do 54 and 55, which is the Kaliya Mardana Varnanam and the reason for Kaliya to come there. So we'll do 54 and 55 in the next class. Okay. सान्ध्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावदेभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानाम् कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना भा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. I just realized next week we don't have class because of the Parayanam. So whoever is coming, Krishna Jayanti also next Thursday. So I'll see most of you at the temple next week. Okay. Bye everyone.